is up, guys? We are back. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Any Action Sportscast. I'm your host, Effie, and this week we're going to be going over UFC Vegas 57, Arman Tsarukyan versus Mateusz Gamrot. And as always, guys, before we do that, make sure you guys hit that like button or hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 100 subscribers, so we really appreciate all the support. We got to go over our bets for last week before we get into this week's stat card. And it turned out our bets went 1 and 2 for negative 1.5 units. Officially putting us on our first ever losing streak as a show. So I'm actually really excited to get over this card right here, and with our back against the wall to stop this losing streak right at 2, and to get in profit here this week. The stacked card, there's a ton of prospects. We don't have 1, 2, but we have 3 guys with dead animals on their heads fighting this week, and I think there's a lot of room for profit. Before we do that, guys, let's go over our bets. Like I said, we went 1 and 3 for negative 1.5 units. Our first bet ended up getting canceled. Joe Lozon, we had a 1 unit shot on him at plus 135. His fight got canceled. It's up to hear that he got injured his knee after that weight cut. I hope he can come back soon and get his retirement fight. After that, guys, we had our 3 bets left, 1 straight and 2 parlays. We had Damir Ismagulov minus 165, 1.65 units to win 1. And this fight was really close. Happy for him to get the win, put us in the green right there. But after that, we lost both our parlays, guys. We had a parlay for 1 unit at plus 122. With Gregory Rodriguez and Calvin Kattar. Now, I saw everyone's tweets. I didn't watch it live, but I had to go rerun and watch the tape. I thought Kattar won 2, 4, and 5, but it's just the way it is. Judges didn't give us the decision there, but I thought we had it. Kind of surprised to see him lose that fight, honestly. Then we had a parlay for 1.5 units that lost. The odds were minus 102. We paired Phil Hawes and Kyle Daukaus. Kyle Daukaus ended up getting knocked down in the first round by Roman Dolidze. I mean, you gotta give it up. He stood really no chance. Phil Hawes and Gregory Rodriguez ended up being like the locks of the night, guys. We really should have paired those guys or went bigger on those guys straight. They dominated their opponents. It was a crazy card. Watching it at the airport, I was just like stunned to see all the knockouts in the first round, or even the fights that got extended were good fights. Deron win, an absolute animal. But like I said, I thought Calvin Kattar won. But whatever. We gotta go into this week's UFC stat card. The headlining card is gonna be amazing. Shavkat Rakhmonov's on the card, Umar's on the card. Yeah, I'm just really pumped to get talking about this fight. So let's get right into UFC Vegas 57, Tsarukyan versus Gamrot. In the main event, we have Arman Tsarukyan taking on Mateusz Gamrot. Arman comes in as a favorite at minus 260. Mateusz the underdog at plus 220. Tsarukyan is 18-2 and Gamrot's 20-1. Gamrot's only loss is to Guram Kutsaladze, who just lost last week. That loss is actually aging well. And most people thought he won that fight. I did think he won that fight. It was a close fight. But let's get to this fight. I'm super high on both these guys. I think Arman can be a future champion. But this is my type of fight, guys. I love fighters that can grapple, that can, reverse people on the ground, that can use the judo trips and judo throws. I just love that type of fight. But Arman, in my opinion, is going to be the slightly quicker fighter. He is going to be the younger fighter here. If you look at Mateusz's last 3 opponents, Scott Holtzman, Jeremy Stevens, and Diego Ferreira, they were 37, 35, and 36 years old. Those are really old 155ers, and Arman is 26. He's going to be 6 years younger than Mateusz here, and he's hungry, man. I really do think he's on his way to some big things in the division, but that's not to say that Mateusz isn't either. He has a ton of experience overseas. He's fought 5 rounds before, but if you look at the styles of the 2 fighters here, I do think it's going to be a pretty even fight where Arman slightly has the edge. If you look at the Islam Makhachev fight and the Davi Ramos fight between them and Arman, I think that's a pretty good indicator of how this fight's going to go. I mean, granted, he did lose to Islam, but who's not losing to Islam? And he managed to get Islam down in that fight, which is pretty impressive looking back. Arman's 5-0 in his last 5. Gamrot's 4-1, but he should be 5-0. He should be undefeated, really. But I will say this, that Gamrot just shoots relentlessly takedowns, takedown, where I think that even if he does get Arman down, I don't think he's going to be able to control him as much as he thinks he's going to be able to here. One thing that was interesting was that Arman decided to do his camp at Syndicate MMA in Vegas, and I am a kind of biased guy, so one of my buddies was a sparring partner for him, so I'm really rooting for him to win. But he usually goes to American Top Team, which is a really good camp. But Mateusz usually goes to American Top Team, and I just watched an interview between Arman and James Lynch, and Arman said that he didn't do his camp at American Top Team because he thought Gamrot was there. Well, it turned out Gamrot went back to Poland for this camp, and Arman suspects that that's because he thinks he has some really good wrestlers back there, and they're really going to be a wrestling heavy game plan here. Which is no surprise if you watch Gamrot's fights. But I do think that in the striking realm, Arman does have a significant advantage. I know the numbers might not show it, but he's a type of fighter, and so is Gamrot. where he's starting to finish more and more guys. On the regional scene, Arman was finishing guys pretty quickly in round one. If you look at his resume, it's like round one, round one, round one. Then he gets to the UFC and starts winning decisions, losing decisions, and then winning decisions. I mean, it's high level fighters. Then in his last two opponents, he smoked them. Christian Giagos and Joel Alvarez. Joel Alvarez was, everyone thought he was going to, have put up a better fight than he did. He ends up getting smoked on the ground via ground pound. But I'm real high on Arman, guys. And I will say, I do think this fight's going to finish inside the distance. I know the overs at 4.5 rounds, but I just think that after 3 rounds, those last 10 minutes are going to be really long, guys. I will say that Arman did mention in that interview that once he found out that it was a 5-round fight, not a 3-round fight, it's going to be the main event, he had to sort of switch up his camp and sort of do things different because he actually said, I have to fight smarter and pace myself, which kind of lends itself to not, a finish. But I do think that Gamrot is liable to gas out here because his game plan is going to be, he's going to have to work the whole fight. And I think that Arman can get him off him if he does get taken down. Guys, people like Davi Ramos and Islam Makhachev are unreal in that realm, and he held his own. So I do think he's an up-and-coming fighter and someone to look out for. So I'm going to pick Arman Tsarukyan via 3rd round finish. I'm going to go with head kick finish. So give me Arman Tsarukyan, win this fight. And in the co-main event, guys, we have a funny hat fighter. I'm talking about Shavkat Rakhmonov taking on Magny. Now, the line currently sits the undefeated Shavkat Rakhmonov minus 390 and Magny, the UFC vet, at plus 320. And I gotta say, guys, that line is out of control. It's absolutely insane. The line opened minus 275, and that is where I thought it was gonna be. I did the research when I, got my prep for this fight. I figured, okay, he's gonna open a little bit under minus 300. And sure enough, he gets steamed all the way to minus 400. Magny, guys, is a UFC vet. That's crazy to see him at those odds, but I get it, guys. I'm on the Shavkat hype train. I think he could be a title contender. I know it's kind of early to say that, but I just really believe in the guy. He's an M1 welterweight champion overseas, and he really just does everything well. But the big thing to me is that he has really good fight IQ. I love fighters that show they have high fight IQ. In the clinch, he's okay, and grappling is pretty good, but he's just really strong with his striking. He throws spinning strikes, he throws straight jabs with combos. He has 15 finishes, 7 knockouts, 8 submissions, 15-0 with 15 finishes. He's finished every single opponent he's had. So it's kind of hard to say that he has harder. He's been tested really because we've never really seen him put in that position. Now, Magny, on the other hand, he grinds fights out. He wins decisions most of the time. He's 26-8, and he has 16 UFC decisions. If you include the Ultimate Fighter, he has 16 decisions. That's pretty crazy. But in those 8 losses, guys, he's been finished 6 times out of those 8 times. It's just one of those things where do you think Shavkat is going to win? Because if he does, he's probably going to either finish Magny or does he get his first ever decision here? And actually, I am kind of worried that that Shavkat will win a decision. I do want to play the Shavkat inside the distance bet, but I feel like Magny is very durable in like I said, 26-8. That's 34 fights, 34 pro fights. Didn't finish 6 times. Plus, he has the experience edge over Magny, and usually that's not a good sign to really go in and fade a guy that has such a high level of experience gap. He's been fighting for a long time, guys, and then Shavkat has really never had this quick of a turnaround in his career. If you look at his resume, it's really like a year or 2 in between each fights. I know COVID had like a part in that, but it's just kind of strange where Magny has been fighting forever. I think this fight will be won in the clinch along the cage, because Magny, that's where Magny wants this fight to pretty much take place. I don't think he's going to want to stand and bang with Shavkat for 15 minutes. He's liable to get knocked out, in my opinion. And if he does get taken down, he might get finished there as well, whether it be a ground and pound or a submission. So I'm interested to see how this fight plays out along the cage. But I really do think that the hype train is going to continue. I do think that Shavkat's going to win this fight. It just comes down to his volume. I'm kind of worried that Shavkat doesn't really throw as much as he should. And if he can even put out a decent amount to good amount of volume here, he should be fine. But I am worried that he's going to be timid and let Neil kind of indicate the pace here and just kind of wait for that one shot. But who knows? I really do think that the guy with the animal on his head is going to win this fight. So with this pick, I'm going to go ahead and pick Shavkat Rakhmonov inside the distance. The next fight, guys, we have a heavyweight fight between Alan Baudot and Josh Parisian. Line currently sits Alan Baudot, the favorite, at minus 115, and Josh, the underdog, at minus 105. It's pretty much a pick 'em at this point. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this fight, guys. I really do think it has a chance to be a sloppy heavyweight fight. I don't think either guy can get a finish here. I do like Alan Baudot. I do think he is the improving fighter here. I do think that we've pretty much seen what we're going to see out of Josh Parisian, whereas Alan Baudot is still, semi-young and experienced in the UFC and his career, really. But I just like the fact that he's training out of the MMA factory with who's that guy? Gone. But give me Baudot decision. I don't think either guy can finish. Probably gonna take the over. But yeah, sloppy heavyweight fight, smoke break fight. Give me Alan Baudot. Be a decision. The next fight, guys, is Umar Nurmagomedov taking on Nate Maness. Now, line currently sits Umar minus 800, Nate Maness plus 600. Now, mind you, Nate Maness is 14-1. Umar is undefeated at 14-0. But you're telling me we're getting plus 600 on a 14-1 fighter, Nate Maness? That's crazy. Okay, let's look into the fight. Everyone knows who Umar is. He's Khabib's cousin, and he's just super rounded. But if you look at the way he fights, he doesn't fight anything like Khabib or any of the other ones, really. He fights more like Usman Nurmagomedov, where he throws a ton of kicks. He's a really striker-based fighter. Obviously, he can use the grappling and seek a finish there if he wants, but to me, when I watch him fight, watch the tape, he just goes to the center of the cage, and he just really spams kicks. I think it was Fellow that mentioned it on his one of his fights, where to do that, you have to have really, really high cardio. Taking kicks to the body and to the leg or to the head, throwing those out there, it takes a lot of cardio to do it as much as he's doing it in that short span. But I do think that he has his best attribute is his high fight IQ. He never is in the wrong spot. He's never putting himself in a vulnerable position, whether it be in exchanges or on the ground. If in the UFC he's 2-0, he has 2 submission wins. He beat Sergey Morozov, who's actually a really good fighter in my opinion. He's actually on the card as well. And Brian Kelleher, that fight was at a catchweight, and he just walked right through Brian Kelleher, who's also on the card. But on the other hand, Nate Maness, he's not no scrub. I was shocked to see this line because, in my opinion, Nate Maness is live to knock out really anyone. He did get dropped by Tony Gravely, but he came back and knocked him out. So that right there shows you he has heart. He's 14-1 and lost once as a pro. And he's pretty much a well-rounded striker. He doesn't really throw volume. He more like sits on his punches, which I do think that Umar will be able to avoid here pretty easily. So, in my opinion, I do think that Umar can get a finish here on the feet, but I'll be surprised to see him get him down and submit him if he chooses to take that path. Because I'll be honest, guys, with some of these Dagestani guys, I kind of feel like sometimes they just want to get cage time, and then they can turn it on and finish a guy. Lately, they've been really finding the finish where it's people like Islam and Usman or Umar. So I'm gonna go ahead and say Umar gets the finish inside the distance, but I bet you that line's probably like minus 250 anyway. So I'm just go ahead and probably not even touch this fight, because even if I bet the over 1.5, Umar is liable for a first round knockout or a first round sub. So pretty hard bet to fight, but I'm just really excited to see Umar. I'm excited to see where he's going to go in the division. I do think there's going to be a title challenger one day, and I'm excited to see how he goes. So give me Umar via 3rd round submission. Up next, guys, we have Thiago Moises taking on Christos Giagos. Line currently sits Thiago Moises, the favorite, at minus 250, and Giagos, the underdog, plus 215. I gotta say, guys, I was surprised at that line. I thought it would be closer. And then I went and looked at the line's history, and I saw that Vegas opened Moises at minus 300. I was really surprised at that. It got me thinking, what did they know that I don't? Like, what are they seeing here? Because in my opinion, they're pretty evenly matched here. I do think that the striking is pretty even with, I'll give the edge to Thiago, but he's not very accurate when he throws, and he is pretty hittable. And then on the ground, obviously, everyone kind of knows Moises as like this sort of BJJ threat, but he's shown that he's been able to get controlled on the ground. He's sort of one of those guys that's comfortable off his back, and he doesn't really get submissions that much at the UFC level. Whereas Giagos, he more controls the fighters in his fights more than Moises does. And I will say right now, I think this fight goes to the decision. I think it gets extended, but because I don't think that either guy can get finished, even though they both got finished in the last fights. Actually, two fights in a row for Moises. He got finished by Alvarez and then Makhachev before that. Those are high-level fighters. And then look at Giagos, he got finished by Tsarukyan, and he's a high-level fighter. I know he did finish Sean Soriano, but that was late noticed, and I don't think Sean Soriano's in the UFC anymore. But yeah, I do think that this is a pretty evenly matched fight. I'll be interested to see who enforces the takedowns here, who shoots more, and because if it's a 15-minute striking match, it's fairly even fight. I do think so. I'm surprised to see the line that wide, but I'm more interested to see fight goes the distance or the over on this fight. So I'm gonna go ahead and look at those bets when they get released. So, but as far as who's gonna win this fight, give me Moises, but that line is crazy. Yeah, so just give me Thiago Moises via decision. Up next, we have a fight that I'm super excited to talk about. We have the action man Chris Curtis taking on Rodolfo Vieira. The line currently sits Chris Curtis, the favorite, minus 130, and Vieira, the underdog, at plus 115. Now, I've heard a lot of people picking both sides of this fight, and in my opinion, I think Chris Curtis is going to knock out Rodolfo Vieira. In 36 professional fights, 36 professional fights, He's been submitted 0 times. Rodolfo Vieira, everyone knows, the ADCC champion, insane Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But this is MMA. He's 8-1 MMA. He's been submitted in UFC. He has known gas tank problems, and in my opinion, he's live in the first round to submit Chris Curtis. Like I said, Chris Curtis has fought 36 times as a professional MMA fighter. He's never been submitted 1 time. He hasn't lost since getting knocked out by Ray Cooper in PFL. Or I think I might be Bellator, I'm not sure. But guys, I think that Chris Curtis can extend this fight and just really get his striking going later. I'm just not impressed by Rafa Vieira. I'm not as high as other people are. I mean, I understand he's great at BJJ, but this is MMA. I mean, it's, he can mix in other stuff here. So give me Chris Curtis to win via knockout, either second, third round, because he's just really been on a run. He's 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Knocked out Brandon Allen, Phil Hawes before that. We saw how Phil Hawes looked this weekend. And then on the other hand, I actually thought Stolfus was going to get submitted by Rodolfo, and I thought Rodolfo was going to submit Anthony Hernandez. He ended up losing, but I just haven't been impressed, man. Suspect gas tank, definitely no striking threat at all. And a one-dimensional fighter. He's like Derek Lewis. He's a sub bust, but instead of knockout bust. So it's pretty blatant to go into a fight camp and knowing that's where you're going to have to deal with. So I trust Eric Nixick, Sheik Couture, and Chris Curtis. Give me Chris Curtis to be a third-round knockout to win this fight. Next fight, guys, we have Carlos Ulberg taking on Tafon and Nchukwi. And the line currently sits Ulberg -120 and Nchukwi +100. The line's been coming down all week. The line opened at Ulberg -145 and Nchukwi +120. I hopped all over the +120 when I had the chance. And I just had to, guys. Carlos Ulberg, in my opinion, is, I don't say fraud, but he's more of like a hype job. If he didn't come from City Kickboxing, we would not be talking highly about this guy. He's very suspect in his actual realm where he's supposed to be good. He's supposed to be good stand-up, and I don't think he's really that good. In the UFC, he just hasn't impressed me, guys. Whereas Teflon, I do think that he has enough skills to win this fight, make it dirty, and either get this in the clinch or on the ground. Can Carlos knock him out? Yeah, sure. But in his last fight, Teflon, he got the absolute worst corner advice he could ever get. He was up 2 rounds, in my opinion, looking to cruise here, and his corner told me he needed to go get a knockout. I got flying kneed in the face, got knocked out. But I'm all over Teflon here. I love him to get a knockout here or win a decision because, like I said, guys, I'm just not impressed by Carlos. Unless Carlos comes out and just has shown really good improvements, which he can because he's pretty young in his MMA career. Then yeah, I mean, that's his path. But I can't trust the guy. I'm surprised to see him as a favorite, honestly. So like I said, when I saw +120, I had to get all over it. I personally thought this should have been the other way. Ulberg, the slight underdog, but give me Teflon via second round knockout. And up next, guys, we have TJ Brown taking on Shayilan Nuerdanbieke. It's a hard name to say. TJ Brown's the favorite, -205. Shayilan's the underdog, +175. And that line's wide, guys. This is a fight between 2 grapplers where they're pretty even everywhere. I do think that TJ Brown's a better guy on the ground. But let's get into it. I love the over in this fight, but it's kind of risky because with as much grappling as I expect to happen in this fight, an opportunity for a sub might present itself. And that is a little worrisome, so I'm going to have to see what that line opens at, or whether it's 1.5 rounds or 2.5 rounds, or even fight goes the distance. But I do like TJ Brown in this fight. He really has nothing to worry about from Shayilan on the feet. He doesn't have any power. He doesn't really have any volume. This guy's going to try and shoot and get this guy in the clinch and get him down, get him the body locks. I'm seeing leg, double leg. Like, he's going to be spamming takedowns on TJ Brown. TJ Brown is, somewhat okay defensively on the ground, but I do think that he's going to be able to get up if he does get taken down, and if he does want to take Shayilan down, I think he's going to be able to do that as well. One thing of note is that lately the Chinese wrestling hasn't been very good in the UFC. I know Shayilan is based out of, I think, China, so I just don't, really have trust or faith betting on a Chinese wrestler where that's his main focus of how he's going to fight the fight. So I really do think that either fighter is going to win a decision or get a sub, like I said, because how many opportunities are going to be down there. So give me TJ Brown via decision. Not too confident, don't have any money on this fight yet, but give me TJ Brown via decision. Up next, guys, we have a pure banger, a fight that I think is going to be definitely worth watching. I'm talking about Raulian Paiva versus Sergey Morozov. Now, the line currently sits Morozov, the favorite, -140, and Paiva, the underdog, +125. Now, I was surprised to see that line that close because usually when you get these guys from that part of the world, there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of tax on them. You have to pay a little extra price. So I was surprised to see it close, but I do think that Sergey is a better fighter. But I do think that there's a reason why the fight is booked that close. Vegas opened the fight at Morozov -110. Now he's getting steamed. Money's been coming on him all the way to -140, 145 area. And let's talk about it. Paiva, I believe, is only 21-4. So he hasn't lost that much, and Sergey is 17-6. You know, he has lost. He got finished in his last fight. We had a ton of money on him in his last fight, and I remember watching that fight, and he ended up dropping the Silva de Andrade in the first round, and comes out, gets sparred, crushed in the second round. It's one of those fights where you're just like super excited, and then you're like, oh fuck, what happened? But that is one thing that worries me. His management of his gas tank, his fight IQ there, it was bad. I do think that he was a better fighter that night, but he just let his opponent, he blew his wide, let his opponent back in the fight, couldn't get the finish when he did get him down, and he got caught, man. But I will say, he was fighting to the end, dude. He has that dog in him. It's not like he just gave up and quit. He's 1-2 in the UFC. He got submitted by Umar Nurmagomedov, and that is something that is a bit of a red flag here, guys. In a bunch of his losses, he's gotten rear naked choke. I think he's been subbed 4 times out of his 6 losses, and they've all been through rear naked choke. So I don't want to say he can really, you know, fight for your money in that third round. I just don't really see Paiva pursuing that unless he really thinks that there's a path to victory for him. Because I do think that Sergey is going to be able enough on the ground to reverse him if he does get taken down, or get up if he does get taken down, or see the takedown himself. Paiva has good footwork, good jabs. He actually has some pretty good striking. He's really experienced, comes from Brazil. He has actually pretty good, pretty crazy pro MMA story if you've been following it with his coaches and his like story. But I don't know, man. I do think that this is going to be a good fight. I like Sergey. I thought he could have won his last fight, but he lost. Paiva beat Kyler Phillips, and Kyler Phillips is a pretty good fighter. You know, getting sacrificed to Sean O'Malley, but I mean, what you can say much about that fight? Sean O'Malley is pretty big, long and tall for the division. That's nothing like Sergey here. Beat Giagos via decision. That's a good fighter. But I do like Sergey here, guys. Got the Kazakhstan. Got my cool little hat here, or flag here. But another dead animal bet, guys. This guy walks to the cage with the dead animal on his head, weighs in with the dead animal on his head. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Sergey via decision. Up next, guys, we have a fight between Cody Durden and JP Buys. Now, JP Buys comes in as a favorite at -120, and Cody Durden, the underdog, at +110. And I gotta say, guys, I like the underdog in this fight. I'm just not impressed by either guy, but I'm at least impressed by JP Buys. Cody Durden's coming off getting smoked by Muhammad Mokaev, but I think that Muhammad's he got submitted, but I do think that Muhammad's gonna be a title challenger here soon. I don't know about soon, but eventually. And he also got submitted by Jamie Flick, Flying Triangle, but Jamie Flick's not in the UFC anymore. And I think Jamie Flick and Muhammad Mokaev have a way higher submission threat than JP Buys. JP Buys is more of a fighter where he looks good early, and in my opinion, he's more of an early finisher and then late fader. I don't like him that much as a fighter here. He's been really chinny in his last 2 fights. I think he got dropped like 5 times in the last 2 fights combined. But this is a fight between 2 quote-unquote grapplers, where I do think that if JP Buys does have the advantage wrestling, if this gets extended, Cody Durden should be able to come on late and get a knockout here late, or submit him, because I do think that JP Buys is chinny. I do not like what I've seen out of him in his last 2 fights. He is the older fighter here. Oh, sorry, he is the younger fighter here, which is surprising because you don't really see the younger fighter have the worst chin. But I don't know. Maybe those are just two bad weight cuts, and I'm looking too much into it. So maybe I'm not gonna be able to touch this fight. But give me Cody Durden and give me him a plus money. I just don't know if he's doing via decision or a knockout. But I'm gonna lean knockout. Give me Cody Durden via 3rd round knockout. Up next, guys, we have a fight between Mario Bautista and Brian Kelleher. Now, the line currently sits Bautista, the favorite, at -165, and Kelleher, the underdog, at +145. Now, this is one of those fights where it's a young fighter taking on an established UFC veteran. Kelleher has fought really good fighters in UFC. He's been around for a long time. He's not a little punk. He's not going to roll over to this up-and-coming fighter. I don't want to call him a gatekeeper, but he's pretty much found himself in that slot. He's never going to fight for a belt, and he's getting relatively a lot of fights from UFC. Where Bautista, I mean, he's coming off beating Jay Perrin. Before that, lost to Trevin Jones. Before that, beat Miles Johns. I really think that this is his fight to lose. One big red flag to me was the fact that Brian Kelleher is, I think, 35 years old, and he's cutting down to 135. I mean, guys, that's really, really old for that weight class, and just to do a weight cut that in general at that age. So give me Mario Bautista via 3rd round knockout. I think that's like a third round knockout I've called on this card, but I really do think that this is going to get extended, and Kelleher is not going to be there later in the fight. Maybe he's going to be able to do it a little earlier, but I think that this is Bautista's fight to lose. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Mario Bautista via 3rd round knockout. That'll do it for our episode this week, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Now it's time to get to the most important part of the show, our Any Action official bets for this week at UFC Vegas 57. We have 4 bets. We actually have a lot of straight bets, guys. Our first bet of the night, we have Chris Curtis, -130, 1.3 units to win 1. Then we have Arman Tsarukyan in the main event, minus 265, 2.65 units to win 1. Then we have Sergey Morozov, minus 140, 1.4 units to win 1. We have Mario Bautista, minus 165, 1.65 units to win 1. And then, guys, our biggest bet of the night is going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov inside the distance, minus 130, 2.6 units to win 2. Now, guys, we're on a 2-week losing streak, and I'm looking forward to getting out of it. I'm looking forward to making some profit, and who knows, maybe we might add some bets before the end of the week. But for right now, those 4 bets are the bets that I like the most. Chris Curtis, in my opinion, all he has to do, obviously it sounds easy to say against Rodolfo Vieira, but just not get submitted, and he's going to be smart enough to have a high enough fight IQ to not put himself in positions to get submitted. And I just don't like betting on one-dimensional fighters, especially when they have bad gas tanks. So give me the 130 price on Chris Curtis to fade Rodolfo Vieira. And then, yeah, guys, Arman Tsarukyan, I think he's going to be the truth. I'm glad I got on minus 265 because I do see that it's minus 280 now in that area. And, you know, save a little money on that. I do think he's going to be the more well-rounded fighter. And he's alive to finish the fight late. After that, guys, I really do think that Sergey Morozov is going to bounce back, is going to correct what he needed to correct. And I like Raulian Paiva, nothing against him, but give me Sergey Morozov. And guys, I really do like Shavkat Rakhmonov, the funny hat bet. Magny's been finished 6 out of the 8 losses that he's had. And really, if it does get extended 3 rounds and Shavkat does win a decision here, I'll take it. I'll wear that, and I really, you know, wear the L on him winning his first ever decision as a pro. So I'm gonna go ahead and take Shavkat Rakhmonov inside the distance. Thanks so much for tuning in this week, guys. We really appreciate it. We're looking to grow the channel. So yeah, guys, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Make sure you guys tune in next week. Good luck to everyone. Let's make this money. Peace.